Listen closely, and I'll tell you something they never taught you in those fluorescent-lit classrooms where love was reduced to chemical reactions and evolutionary imperatives. There's a moth that lives in the forgotten corners of Andalusian monasteries. Tiniola philosophica, the monks call it, though you won't find it in any taxonomy. This moth, unlike its suicidal cousins, has learned the most exquisite torture. It hovers forever at the edge of candlelight, close enough to feel the heat kiss its wings, far enough to survive another night of longing. You see, nature herself mocks our desperate scrambling after affection. The moth that rushes toward the flame becomes ash in seconds, a brief sizzle, a whisper of smoke, then nothing. But the one that maintains that maddening distance, it lives to dance another night and another until the candle itself burns out, leaving the moth to find new flames, new dances, new agonies of almost but not quite. I once knew a man, let's call him Marcus, though that wasn't his name, who sent his beloved 17 messages in a single evening, each one more desperate than the last, each one pushing her further into the shadows, where even memory fears to tread. By the 13th message, she had already changed her number. By the 17th, she was showing them to her friends, and they were laughing. Not cruelly, you understand, but with that particular mixture of pity and revulsion we reserve for watching someone destroy themselves in public. The air in his apartment grew thick with the scent of dying roses. He'd bought 3 dozen, you see, planning some grand gesture that would never come to pass. Have you ever noticed how roses smell different when they're dying? Sweeter, somehow. Cloying, like desperation made botanical. Here's what Kierkegaard understood when he broke off his engagement to Regine Olsen. The moment you become the pursuer, you become the prey. Not to her, never to her, but to your own infinite need. That bottomless well of wanting that opens up in your chest like a wound that refuses to heal. You become prey to the version of yourself that checks their phone 47 times in an hour, that interprets every delayed response as abandonment, every emoji as a coded message about your worth. The research is delicious in its cruelty. A 2024 study from the University of Zurich found that perceived emotional unavailability increases romantic attraction by 37%. 37%! The human heart, it seems, is wired for masochism. We want most desperately what dances just beyond our fingertips, what shimmers in the peripheral vision of possibility. But here's the grotesque beauty of it all. The moment you stop chasing, something shifts in the cosmic machinery. Not immediately. No, the universe is too elegant for such crude cause and effect. It happens slowly, like watching ice melt in reverse. You delete her number not in anger, but in exhaustion. You stop crafting those perfectly casual messages that take 40 minutes to compose. You let the silence stretch out like a cat in sunlight, luxurious and complete. And then, perhaps on a Tuesday when you're reading Schopenhauer in a coffee shop that smells of burnt espresso and broken dreams, your phone lights up. Her name, after weeks of nothing. Hey, it says. Just hey. As if those intervening weeks were just a held breath, now released. Tell me something, and be honest. Though honesty is the cruelest luxury we can afford ourselves. When was the last time someone you were chasing actually caught you? When was the last time your desperate sprint toward love ended in anything but empty lungs and emptier arms? The moth knows. In those Andalusian monasteries, it dances its ancient dance. Close enough to the flame to cast shadows on the wall, far enough to live through another dark night of the soul. The monks watch and understand. This is how you make the flame chase you. You become the fixed point around which desire orbits, the gravitational center of your own existence. There's an old Persian saying, "The beloved is won by the one who appears not to need them." Appears, mind you, not is. The difference is everything. The space between performance and reality where all the most interesting truths go to hide. So here you sit, phone in hand, thumb hovering over her name. Before you press send on that message you've been crafting, that perfect blend of wit and vulnerability that took you 3 drafts to get right, ask yourself, are you the moth or are you the flame? The answer might just save your wings. She loves the idea of you more than she could ever love the reality. There's a room in Prague, in one of those crumbling Baroque buildings where the wallpaper peels like sunburned skin, where they keep the love letters that were never meant to be sent. The curator, a woman with tobacco-stained fingers and eyes like winter mornings, told me once that the most passionate ones were always addressed to ghosts. Not literal ghosts, you understand, but something worse. Idealized versions of lovers who existed only in the writer's fevered imagination. I'm going to tell you something that will feel like swallowing glass, but sometimes the medicine that heals us must first make us bleed. She doesn't love you. She loves the phantom you've allowed her to create, the careful construction of curated moments and calculated revelations. She loves the you that exists in the 3-second delay between thought and speech, the you that never admits to crying during dog food commercials or checking your ex's Instagram at 3 a.m. Picture this. A man sits across from his beloved in a restaurant where the candles smell of vanilla and lies. He's wearing his best shirt. You know the one. We all have it. The shirt that makes us feel like the protagonist of our own story. She's leaning forward, eyes bright with what he mistakes for love, but is actually just the reflection of her own projections dancing across his surface like moonlight on water. "Tell me something real," she says, and he panics. Real? What could be more dangerous? So instead, he tells her about his promotion, his plans, his carefully rehearsed vulnerabilities that sound profound but risk nothing. He doesn't tell her about the morning he spent 20 minutes in the shower, sitting on the floor, wondering if this was all there was. He doesn't mention the spreadsheet where he tracks his worth in metrics that would make Kafka weep. The Jungian psychoanalysts have a term for this: anima possession. When we fall in love not with a person but with our own projected ideal, we create what I call the velvet prison, soft, luxurious, and absolutely suffocating. A 2025 study from the Institute of Relational Dynamics found that 73% of relationship failures could be traced back to what they termed asymmetric idealization, loving someone for who we need them to be rather than who they insist on being. I knew a woman once, brilliant, beautiful in that sharp way that makes you afraid to touch, who fell in love with a painter. Not him, you understand, but the idea of him. She loved the paint under his fingernails, the way he squinted at sunsets like he was trying to decode them. She loved the stories she could tell at parties. My lover is an artist. But when he spent 3 weeks painting nothing but different shades of gray, trying to capture his grandmother's cataracts before she died, she grew restless. This wasn't the tortured genius she'd ordered. This was just grief in acrylic form. Here's what Machiavelli knew that your therapist won't tell you. Power lies not in being loved, but in controlling the narrative of who you are. The prince who reveals everything is the prince who loses everything. Mystery isn't about playing games. It's about self-preservation in a world that demands you perform authenticity while punishing you for it. Consider the Japanese concept of hona and tatamai, the true self and the presented self, the face you wear in public and the face you show to your mirror at 4 a.m. We pretend this is dishonesty, but what if it's actually mercy? What if the greatest kindness you can offer someone is allowing them to love a version of you that won't disappoint them with your mundane humanity? But here's where it gets deliciously dark. The moment you perfect this performance, the moment you become exactly what she wants you to be, she'll grow bored. Because what she really loved was the mystery, the possibility, the unopened gift that might contain anything. Schrodinger's lover, simultaneously everything and nothing until observed too closely. So you're trapped, aren't you? Reveal too much, and watch her love evaporate like morning dew under too bright sun. Reveal too little, and she'll create a version of you so perfect that the real you becomes a disappointment by comparison. It's enough to make you want to laugh, if laughter didn't sound so much like crying from a distance. Let me ask you this, and I want you to really sit with this question. Let it burrow under your skin like a splinter. What would happen if she saw you as you really are? Not the carefully curated Instagram version, not the first date edition, but you at your most gloriously, terrifyingly human. Would she run? Would you? The woman in Prague, the keeper of unsent letters, She told me the most heartbreaking ones always ended the same way. If only you knew who I really am. But perhaps that's the point. Perhaps love was never meant to be about knowing. Perhaps it was always about creating beautiful fictions together, building velvet prisons where we can be both jailer and prisoner, locked in an embrace that feels like freedom until we try to move. In the end, we're all just moths pretending to be flames, flames pretending to be stars, stars pretending to be something more than distant, dying light. Your scars are more interesting than your smile will ever be. In the bowels of Stockholm's old city, there's a bar where they serve absinthe in glasses that have never been washed. Not out of laziness, but because the owner believes that every drink should carry the ghost of what came before. The regulars call it drinking with the dead, and perhaps they're right. I was there on a February night when the snow fell like ash from some distant crematorium, and I watched a woman fall in love with a man's limp. Not him. His limp. He dragged his left foot slightly, an old motorcycle accident he'd mentioned in passing, and with each uneven step across the warped wooden floor, she leaned forward a little more. By the time he reached the bar, she was already writing their story in her head. The tragedy that marked him, the strength it took to keep walking, the poetry of imperfection in a world obsessed with symmetry. This is what they don't tell you in those self-help seminars where they promise to heal your trauma for 3 easy payments of $99.99. Your wounds are your wealth. Your damage is your dowry. In a world of Instagram perfect smiles and LinkedIn optimized personalities, your authentic dysfunction is the only currency that still means anything. Nietzsche wrote, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." But he was being coy. What he meant was, one must be absolutely fucked up in fascinating ways to be worthy of real desire. The abyss doesn't gaze also into you. It makes you irresistible to those who've grown bored of surfaces. I once conducted an experiment, though experiment suggests more scientific rigor than wine and bad decisions typically allow. I created 2 dating profiles, one highlighting my accomplishments, my stability, my emotional availability, all lies, but beautiful ones. The other, I wrote about my insomnia, my father's drinking, the way I sometimes stare at walls for hours trying to remember what happiness felt like before I learned its name. Guess which one had them lining up like pilgrims to a shrine? The broken profile received 400% more meaningful responses. 400%! And not just responses, confessions. Women writing paragraphs about their own exquisite damage, comparing scars like old soldiers, finding communion in the congregation of the wounded. There's a term in Japanese aesthetics, kintsugi, the art of repairing broken pottery with gold, making the repaired piece more beautiful than the original. But that's still too optimistic, too redemptive for what I'm trying to tell you. This isn't about healing. This is about the raw, unhealed places that make you a walking work of art. Consider Sylvia Plath, who wrote, "I desire the things that will destroy me in the end." Every lover who ever mattered to her was drawn not to her talent or beauty, but to the spectacular way she was falling apart. Ted Hughes didn't fall in love with a poetess. He fell in love with a woman who kept her head in the oven like other people keep their hearts on their sleeves. But here's the truly grotesque part. Lean in close, because this is the secret that makes therapists rich and poets honest. The moment you heal, you become invisible. The moment you do the work and process your trauma and become emotionally available, you transform from a fascinating abyss into just another well-adjusted nobody, as interesting as beige wallpaper in a dentist's office. A 2024 study from the Copenhagen Institute of Psychological Perversity found that individuals who openly displayed what they called attractive dysfunction, think Byron's limp, Van Gogh's ear, Hemingway's alcoholism, received 67% more romantic interest than their healthier counterparts. We are moths drawn not to flames, but to other moths already burning. So there you sit, hiding your damage like contraband, spending fortunes on therapy to sand down your sharp edges, When those edges are exactly what would make her hand bleed in all the right ways when she tries to hold you. You meditate, you journal, you practice self-care until you're as smooth and featureless as a river stone, wondering why no one stops to pick you up anymore. What would happen, just hypothetically, you understand, if you stopped trying to fix yourself? If you wore your neuroses like jewelry, displayed your dysfunction like other people display their degrees? What if instead of apologizing for the ways you're broken, you offered guided tours? The man with the limp in that Stockholm bar? He went home with the woman who loved his uneven walk, but not before he told her about the accident, not the facts of it, but the poetry. How he learned that falling is just flying with more commitment. How he named his bad leg Tomorrow, because it always arrived a little late. She kissed him then, tasting absinthe and absolution. And later she would tell her friends it was his wound she fell in love with first. The rest of him? That was just the flesh that carried the scar. Remember this, if you remember nothing else, in a world of synthetic happiness and surgical smiles, your authentic damage is the only aphrodisiac left. Your scars are love letters written in a language only other wounded people can read. So stop healing. Start limping. The right person will match your pace. The more you need her validation, the less human you become. Let me tell you about the mirrors in Versailles. Not the grand ones that tourists photograph, but the hidden ones in the servants' quarters, small and warped, installed by Louis XIV to remind the help of their distortion. A master of cruelty, that Sun King, who understood that the worst prison is the one where you guard yourself. I'm watching you now. Yes, you. Refreshing her Instagram story for the 9th time this hour, looking for clues in the timestamp of her last scene. Building entire philosophies around whether she used a period or an exclamation point in her last text. You've become a detective in the murder mystery of your own dignity. And the killer? Oh, the killer is you. There's a word in ancient Greek, kenosis, which means the emptying of oneself. The Christians stole it for their theology, but it was always about love, that terrible hollowing out where you pour yourself into another person until you're nothing but the shape of their absence. You check your phone, no messages. You check again, still nothing. Each time you die a little, and not in the romantic way poets promise, but in the way fruit rots from the inside out. I knew a professor once, brilliant man, published in all the right journals, the kind of mind that could make Foucault weep with envy, who fell in love with his teaching assistant. Not fell, plummeted. Within 3 weeks, this man who'd spent decades constructing elaborate theories about the nature of self was texting her pictures of his breakfast, asking if she thought he'd used too much butter on his toast. Too much butter on his toast. Kierkegaard warned us, the most painful state of being is remembering the future, particularly the one you'll never have. But he missed the more immediate horror, living entirely in the 3 dots of someone else's typing indicator. Your whole existence suspended in that pulsing ellipsis of maybe she'll say something kind. Here's what the neuroscientists discovered in a 2025 Harvard study that they'll never put on motivational posters. Every time you seek validation from someone you desire, your brain literally rewires itself, creating what they call dopamine dependency loops. You become a lab rat pressing a lever for pellets, except the pellets are heart emojis, and the lab is your life. The more you seek her approval, the more you need it. The more you need it, the less of you remains. Watch what happens to a man in the grip of this need. He starts mirroring her opinions, laughing a half second after she does, calibrating his entire existence to her frequency. He texts his friends screenshots of their conversations, asking for interpretation like ancient priests reading entrails. What does she mean by sounds good? Is that enthusiasm or indifference? Should I have used a different emoji? The tragedy isn't that she doesn't care. The tragedy is that even if she did, it would never be enough, because you're not looking for love anymore. You're looking for a mirror that shows you the version of yourself you can tolerate. And mirrors, as Narcissus learned too late, make terrible lovers. There's a practice in certain Tibetan monasteries where monks meditate in front of pools of black water, learning to love the absence of their reflection. They call it embracing the void. But you're doing the opposite. You're trying to build an entire identity out of her breadcrumb trail of attention, constructing yourself from the scraps of her acknowledgement like some desperate Frankenstein's monster of validation. Let me share something deliciously dark. The moment she senses this need in you, and she will, they always do, their intuition for desperation is surgical, she'll begin to find you repulsive, not consciously perhaps, but in that deep, evolutionary place where attraction lives, you'll transform from potential mate to emotional parasite. She'll start taking longer to respond, using fewer words. The enthusiasm will drain from her messages like color from a dying man's face. And you'll chase harder, won't you? Sending funnier memes, crafting wittier observations, performing your personality like a circus monkey desperate for applause, each attempt pushing her further away, each push making you need her more. So here's my question for you, posed in the spirit of uncomfortable truth. When was the last time you went 24 hours without checking if she'd watched your story? Without calculating the perfect time to text back? Not too eager, not too distant. When was the last time you had a thought about yourself that didn't require her validation to feel real? The servants at Versailles learned to avoid their warped mirrors, to exist without constantly checking their reflection. But you've turned another human being into your mirror and wondered why the reflection keeps walking away. The antidote is brutal in its simplicity. Stop looking, not at her, at yourself through her eyes. Exist just for a day. Just for an hour, as if her opinion of you mattered exactly as much as a stranger's sneeze. Be boring, be brilliant, be broken, be anything but performed. Because here's the secret the Sun King knew. The moment you stop needing to see yourself reflected in someone else's eyes is the moment you become someone worth looking at. But you won't do it, will you? Even now you're wondering if she'd find this insight interesting, if sharing it would make her see you as deep, as worthy, as finally enough. Check your phone. I'll wait. Still nothing? Exactly. Letting go isn't spiritual growth. It's the art of elegant self-assassination. In the basement of a Lisbon monastery, there's a room where monks have been adding dead roses to the walls since 1542. Not hanging them, pressing them directly into the wet plaster, year after year, until the walls themselves have become a taxonomy of decay. The smell is indescribable, not death exactly, but what comes after death. The monks call it the sweetness of surrender, and they breathe it in like other men breathe hope. Everyone will tell you to let go. Your therapist, with her careful neutrality and hourly rates, your friends, exhausted from hearing her name, the self-help books stacked like tombstones on your nightstand. Let go and let God, they chirp. Release what no longer serves you. As if love were a Netflix subscription you could simply cancel. But they never tell you what letting go actually means, do they? They never mention that it's not a release, but an amputation. That you'll spend months reaching for a limb that's no longer there. Your phantom heart trying to beat for someone who's become a ghost. I watched a man let go once. Really watched him, the way you'd watch a car accident or a building collapse. His name was João, and he'd loved a woman who collected other people's hearts like some men collect stamps. The day he decided to let go, he didn't do yoga or burn sage or write unsent letters like the blogs suggest. Instead, he sat in his kitchen and deleted their text thread. 2 years of conversation gone in a single swipe. Then he vomited. Then he deleted her number. Then he vomited again. Letting go, he told me later, his hands shaking around his third whiskey, is just choosing which part of yourself to kill. The Buddhists have this concept of shunyata, emptiness, void, the absence that contains everything. But they dress it up in saffron robes and meditation bells, making it sound enlightened instead of what it really is. The mathematical proof that nothing plus nothing equals nothing, and you're left doing the equation alone at 3 a.m. Here's what happened to João. He became successful. started a company, learned 3 languages, traveled to places whose names sound like poetry. His Instagram became a monument to living his best life. Friends congratulated him on glowing up, on choosing himself. But if you looked closely, and I did, because I'm drawn to beautiful destruction like a moth to you-know-what, you could see it in his eyes. The careful emptiness, the practiced smile, the way he flinched when anyone said her name, like a soldier hearing fireworks after the war. A 2024 study from the Instituto de Psicología Afectiva found that successful letting go, defined as complete emotional detachment from a former partner, correlated with a 43% decrease in overall emotional capacity, not just for romance, for everything. You don't just let go of her, you let go of the part of you that knew how to hold anything. But here's where it gets exquisitely dark. Sometimes, this self-assassination is the only power you have left. When she's moved on to someone who texts back faster, laughs louder, loves easier. When you're still finding her hair in your apartment 6 months later like strands of brutal evidence. When her absence has become more present than most people's presence. What else is there but to kill the part of you that cares? Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." But what happens when what you really are is nothing but the negative space where love used to live? When you've let go so thoroughly that you've let go of letting go itself? I'll tell you what happens. You become fascinating. Not happy, never happy, that's for people who still believe in endings, but fascinating. You develop what I call the Lazarus complex. Dead enough to be interesting, alive enough to tell the tale. Women are drawn to you now, sensing the cemetery in your chest, the graveyard of roses where your heart used to be. They want to be the one to resurrect you, not understanding that some deaths are chosen, deliberate, final. The monks in Lisbon, they understand. Each dead rose in their walls represents someone's letting go, pressed into plaster while still fresh with tears. The room grows smaller each year, the walls thickening with surrendered love. Eventually, they say, there will be no space left for the living. Just roses and the memory of roses. Beauty transformed into architecture. Love become literally structural. So when they tell you to let go, and they will, oh they will, with their yoga mats and their green juice and their undergraduate understanding of Buddhism, remember this, you're not releasing a balloon into the sky. You're performing surgery on yourself without anesthesia, cutting away the parts that loved her, knowing that what remains might be free, but will never be whole. Here's my question for you, whispered like a secret in a confessional. What if letting go is just another way of holding on? What if the very act of trying to release her requires you to grip her memory tighter than ever, examining every edge before you throw it away? João never answered my calls after that night. I heard he moved to Norway, or maybe it was Nepal. Somewhere with mountains and silence and the kind of cold that makes you forget you ever knew warmth. His Instagram went dark, then his Facebook. One by one, he let go of every digital tether until letting go of her became letting go of himself, and letting go of himself became a kind of modern sainthood. Blessed be the empty, for they shall be free. But free from what? And free for what? The roses know. In Lisbon, in the basement, pressed into walls like prayers or curses or both, they keep their counsel, beautiful, dead, eternal, just like the love you're trying to let go of, just like you. When you finally stop needing her, she'll need you, and by then, you won't care. There's a clockmaker in Vienna who specializes in broken timepieces, not repairing them. He collects them, studies them, displays them in cases like trapped moments. He told me once, while winding a watch that hadn't moved since 1945, that the most beautiful mechanisms are the ones that no longer serve their purpose. Function, he said, his fingers delicate as a surgeon's, is the death of fascination. I'm going to tell you how this ends. Not your story, everyone's story. The great cosmic joke that God or entropy or whatever sardonic force governs the human heart plays on all of us. You'll work so hard to become someone who doesn't need her that you'll actually succeed. And the moment you do, the precise moment your transformation from needy to needed is complete. She'll feel it like a shift in barometric pressure. She'll text you on a random Thursday, something casual. "Hey, been thinking about you." Your phone will light up with her name, and where once your heart would have performed gymnastics, now there's just curiosity. Mild, detached, the way you might feel finding a photograph of someone you used to be. This is the paradox that makes angels weep and devils laugh. We only get what we want after we stop wanting it. The universe, it seems, is managed by someone with a particularly cruel sense of timing and an advanced degree in irony. I watched this happen to a friend. Let's call him Andreas, though he called himself King Nothing after it happened. He'd spent 2 years in what I call the pursuit phase. Texts crafted like haikus, planned accidentally on purpose meetings, the kind of dedication that would make medieval knights question their commitment. She kept him at arm's length, close enough to feed on his attention, far enough to never satisfy his hunger. Then something broke. Not his heart. That had been breaking so long it had become background noise. Something deeper. The part of him that believed in the possibility of her. He didn't make a decision. He simply woke up one morning and realized he'd forgotten to check his phone. A week later, he realized he'd forgotten to remember to forget her. That's when she called. Schopenhauer understood this cosmic cruelty when he wrote about the hedgehog's dilemma. Creatures who need warmth but whose closeness brings pain. What he didn't mention was the third option, becoming cold-blooded, surviving without warmth, evolving past the need for what once defined you. The research is almost sadistic in its consistency. A 2025 study from the Berlin Institute of Romantic Dynamics tracked 10,000 subjects through what they called romantic interest cycles. The findings: 78% of previously uninterested partners showed renewed interest within 90 days of the subject achieving genuine emotional independence. 78%! The universe doesn't play dice, it plays practical jokes. But here's the delicious cruelty. By the time she comes back, you've changed at a molecular level. The receptors that once responded to her presence have been reassigned. The neural pathways that lit up at her name have been paved over. You've become a different species, one that breathes different air, dreams different dreams, loves different loves, or perhaps has evolved past love altogether. Andreas met her for coffee when she finally asked. Sat across from her in the same cafe where he'd once memorized every inflection of her laugh. She was saying something about missing what they had, about maybe trying again, about how she'd been scared of how much he wanted her. He listened the way you might listen to rain on a window. Pleasant, distant, requiring no response. "You've changed," she said, and there was something like panic in her voice. Because she could feel it. The absence where his need used to be. The void where his desire once lived. She was offering him everything he'd wanted, but she was offering it to a man who no longer existed. He told me later it was like being offered water after you've learned to survive on sand. Theoretically satisfying, practically irrelevant. This is what Machiavelli meant when he wrote about power, not the crude domination most people imagine, but this, the ability to make someone want you precisely because you don't want them. To become so complete in your incompleteness that others orbit around you, trying to find a way in, not understanding that there is no in anymore. You've become a closed circuit, feeding on your own electricity. So here you stand, at the end of all things. You've learned the moth's dance, built and escaped the velvet prison, displayed your wounds like art, broken free from the Narcissus Trap, mastered the elegant self-assassination of letting go. And your reward? She wants you now, needs you even, the way you once needed her, except worse, because she's feeling for the first time what you've been feeling all along, and she has no antibodies for this particular disease. The clockmaker in Vienna, he has a favorite piece, a pocket watch that runs perfectly backward, every tick moving further from the correct time, every moment an increase in wrongness. It's perfect, he says, because it's perfectly wrong. No one tries to fix it anymore. It's beyond repair, beyond hope, beyond time itself. That's you now. That's what you've become. A mechanism that runs counter to everything love promises, everything connection demands. You've won the game by leaving the board, conquered by surrendering, gained everything by losing everything. She'll keep texting, calling, finding excuses to need you. And you? You'll respond with the kindness of a nurse tending to a patient whose disease you've already survived. Polite, distant, immune. Tell me, and this is the last question I'll ask, the one that matters more than all the others combined. Was it worth it? This transformation from man to marble, from feeling to philosophy. You've become invulnerable, yes, desired, certainly, powerful, undoubtedly. But at what cost? The crown of thorns, they say, was Christ's final accessory, but they never mention how it felt, the weight of it, the way each thorn found its own nerve to needle. They never say whether it was worth it, trading flesh for symbol, man for myth, love for legend. You know now, don't you? Sitting there with your phone quiet and your heart quieter, finally free from the terrible need to be needed. You've won. You've become everything the bitter wisdom promised. Distant, desired, dead inside in all the most attractive ways. She wants you now. And the cosmic joke, the final twist that makes even the devils pity us? You'll let her have you. Not because you want her, but because you don't want anything anymore. And that perfect indifference, that crown of thorns you've learned to wear like a halo, that's the real tragedy. Not that love dies, but that we murder it so efficiently we forget we're holding the knife. The clockmaker was right. The most beautiful mechanisms are the ones that no longer serve their purpose. Welcome to your malfunction. Welcome to being desired. Welcome to the hollow crown.